The Alchemist is a renowned novel by Brazilian author Paulo Coelho, recounting the adventurous journey of Santiago, a young Spanish shepherd boy, as he seeks a treasure in the deserts of Egypt. Along the way, he not only searches for gold and riches, but also discovers the meaning of dreams, perseverance, and the path to pursuing his destiny, what the author calls the personal legend. The work was written in 1988 in Portuguese. After its publication, it gained immense worldwide fame, earning the title the best-selling book after the Bible. Santiago, a young Spaniard, was groomed from childhood by his parents to become a priest. However, a confined life in one place was not the desire of this restless soul. He wanted to venture out, travel the world, and learn new things. Choosing to become a shepherd to fulfill this dream, he bought his first sheep with gold coins given by his father, who, deep down, also yearned for adventure, but had set it aside due to life's burdens. Santiago roamed the southern Spanish countryside for years, living a carefree life with his flock. On his way to a small town where, a year earlier, he had sold wool and met the daughter of a shopkeeper, a girl he secretly admired, he stopped to rest at an abandoned church. There, he dreamed the same dream twice. He saw himself standing before the pyramids of Egypt, where a treasure awaited. Believing it to be a prophetic dream, Santiago resolved to pursue it. He sought out an old gypsy woman known for interpreting dreams. Though she demanded a tenth of any treasure he might find at the pyramids, her words were vague. She confirmed the treasure was real, urging him to seek it, calling it his personal legend, the true dream of every individual. Still skeptical of the gypsy's words, Santiago unexpectedly met a mysterious old man who introduced himself as Melchizedek, king of Salem. The old man taught him about the omens of the universe and gave him two stones, Urim and Thummim, to aid in decision-making. Melchizedek emphasized, when you truly desire something, the entire universe conspires to help you achieve it. These words ignited Santiago's journey. Selling his flock, Santiago left his homeland for Egypt, filled with excitement and fear. He thought reaching Africa and finding the pyramids would be straightforward, but life is never that simple. Upon arriving in Tangier, Morocco, Santiago was immediately swindled, losing all his money. Penniless, homeless, and unable to speak the local language, he fell into despair and wept. Yet, he gradually calmed himself, reflecting, I can see the world through the eyes of a wretched man robbed of everything, or through those of an adventurer seeking treasure. He began to learn how to observe, to understand beyond words, and to decipher the unspoken language of the world. Eventually, Santiago found work at a crystal shop. Thinking Egypt was now just a distant dream, he planned to save money to return to Tarifa and buy back his sheep. At the shop, Santiago learned to be creative in business. He suggested displaying the crystals outdoors, attracting more customers and making the shop thrive. The shopkeeper became a good friend, teaching him that success often lies not in the destination, but in the journey itself. Santiago realized he was stronger than he thought. He learned to trust himself and the universe's omens, as Melchizedek had advised. Nearly a year later, Santiago had earned enough to buy a new flock, twice the size of the one he sold. Yet, he didn't buy a single sheep. Instead, as he packed his belongings and saw the Urim and Thummim stones from the king of Salem, he decided to continue his quest for the hidden treasure at the pyramids. Leaving Tangier, Santiago joined a large caravan crossing the Sahara Desert toward the Al-Fayoum oasis. The desert was unlike anywhere Santiago had been. Sounds were swallowed by the sand, the scorching heat and blistering winds whooped up clouds of dust, and the endless expanse could easily disorient anyone. Yet, in that silence, Santiago's heart began to speak in a way he had never truly heard before. Throughout the journey, Santiago observed, learned, and reflected. He listened to the caravan members, especially the leader, who understood that the desert teaches patience, listening, and waiting. At night, Under a star-filled sky, Santiago felt small in the vast universe but realized he was part of it and that the universe quietly guides those who dare to pursue their destiny. The desert was not just a physical challenge, but a test of faith. Santiago faced fear, doubt, and moments of wanting to give up. Yet, with each step imprinted in the sand, he learned, when you truly want something, the universe conspires to help you achieve it. The harsh and unforgiving desert became Santiago's greatest teacher. It challenged him, purified his mind, and forced him to confront his fears and deepest dreams. Crossing the desert was not merely a journey from one place to another, it was an awakening, a rite of passage, preparing Santiago for the treasure, both material and spiritual, at the journey's end. Among the caravan, Santiago met a unique companion, a young Englishman, unlike anyone he had encountered before. The Englishman was not chasing gold or adventure. He carried a trunk full of thick books written in complex languages. While others brought food, water, and essentials, he carried knowledge. He viewed the desert not as a nomad would, but as a scholar seeking the world's hidden wonders. His goal was clear: to meet the true alchemist at the all-fame oasis and learn to transmute base metals into gold, the ultimate aim of alchemy. But deeper still was his desire to understand the soul of the universe, what great alchemists called the language of the world. The meeting between Santiago and the Englishman was more than a friendship, it was a clash of two paths to truth. Santiago learned through feeling, observing nature, and listening to his heart, while the Englishman trusted books and ancient knowledge. Yet, both were drawn to the same center, the truth about themselves and their place in the universe. Through the Englishman, Santiago first heard of concepts like the Philosopher's Stone and the elixir of life, symbols of transformation and spiritual perfection. And through Santiago's intuitive connection to the universe, the Englishman began to see that sometimes the greatest knowledge lies not in books but in the desert's silence and the heart's rhythm. The all-fame oasis, a stop of destiny. After endless days crossing the sea of sand, Santiago arrived at Al-Fayum, a lush oasis amid the vast desert. The cool air, towering date palms, and refreshing wells felt like a dream. The caravan sighed in relief, for this was a rare sanctuary in nature's harshness. For Santiago, the oasis was more than a rest stop. From the moment he arrived, he sensed it held something vital to his destiny, as if the soul of the world was whispering secrets he couldn't yet fully grasp. Meeting Fatima, love born in the desert. One serene morning, as Santiago went to fetch water from a well, he met Fatima, a young nomad girl with gentle beauty and eyes as deep as the desert. In that instant, his heart beat to a new rhythm, one he had never felt before. He knew this was love. It didn't take long for Santiago to open up, sharing his dream, the treasure in Egypt, and the journey he'd undertaken. Unlike others, Fatima didn't discourage or doubt him. She smiled and said, "True love never holds anyone back. If you must go to find your treasure, then go. I'll wait for you." Fatima was not just love but unwavering faith. She didn't ask Santiago to abandon his dream to prove his feelings. Instead, she became part of that dream, a foundation for him to continue his path. The omen of attack, reading the language of the universe. Settling into the oasis, Santiago began to learn to listen to the desert. As the Englishman had spoken of the language of the universe, he spent afternoons on the dunes, observing every small movement, every gust of wind, and especially the birds. One afternoon, watching the sky, Santiago saw two birds clashing as if in battle. In that moment, an omen flashed in his mind. He sensed an attack was coming to the oasis, a place considered neutral and untouchable. Alarmed but trusting his intuition, Santiago sought out the oasis's tribal chief, a wise and powerful man. Though skeptical, the chief heeded the warning. If correct, Santiago would be rewarded. If wrong, his life would be the price. The next morning, as foretold, the attack came. Thanks to preparations, the oasis repelled the enemy. Santiago was rewarded with gold and offered a role as the chief's advisor. From an unknown traveler, Santiago became someone who could commune with the soul of the world, respected not just for his intuition, but for saving the community. Meeting the Alchemist, the final guide. This event drew the attention of a remarkable figure, the Alchemist, a legendary man living in seclusion at the oasis, rumored to turn metal into gold and live centuries through an elixir. The Alchemist approached Santiago quietly but with commanding presence. He didn't teach like a traditional master, but spoke in metaphors and intuition, awakening what already lay within Santiago's soul. He said, "When you truly want something, the universe conspires to help you achieve it." He urged Santiago to continue to the pyramids, where his dream had led him, and offered to accompany him through the next perilous stretch of the desert. Fatima bid him farewell with a sad but trusting smile. Santiago left the oasis with love in his heart, the respect of its people, and a great teacher by his side. The desert now was more than a harsh backdrop, it became a living character, both a challenge and a teacher. Santiago and the Alchemist rode camels across endless golden sands under a vast blue sky. They often traveled in silence, and Santiago learned, some things can only be felt in quiet. The Alchemist didn't teach conventionally. He asked, "Do you hear what the desert says? Have you listened to your heart? Have you learned to trust your intuition?" Santiago began to sense that everything around him spoke, from the winds, the stars, to the camels' subtle movements. It was the language of the world, wordless, understood only by the heart. While crossing the desert, Santiago and the Alchemist were captured by nomadic warriors embroiled in a fierce tribal war. Taken to the leader's camp, they faced a skeptic who dismissed dreams and alchemy. To save Santiago, the Alchemist told the leader, "He can turn into the wind." Santiago froze. He had never done such a thing. He didn't even understand how it could be possible. With no way out, the leader gave him 3 days to prove it, or both would die. For 3 days, Santiago sat silently in the desert, facing death, and began speaking to nature. He asked the wind, the sun, the desert, and finally communed with the soul of the world. Through this metaphysical dialogue, Santiago realized, all things in the universe share one origin, from a grain of sand to a star, from the desert to the human heart. On the 3rd day, before warriors who doubted miracles, something extraordinary happened. Santiago summoned the wind. No one could explain it, but they felt it. He had merged with the world's soul. He was no longer just a man, he was part of the universe. The leader, awestruck, freed them. After their release, Santiago and the Alchemist stopped at the Coptic monastery on the edge of the Egyptian desert, a serene, spiritual place. Here, the Alchemist chose not to continue with Santiago. But before parting, he performed a final ritual, one whispered about but rarely seen, turning base metal into gold. He placed a piece of lead in a small fire within a stone room. After hours of refining and chanting alchemical principles, Santiago watched the dark metal shift, turning from dull gray to radiant gold, then flowing as pure liquid. The Alchemist poured the molten gold into a coin-shaped mold. Once cooled, before Santiago lay real gold ingots. He gave Santiago a quarter of the gold, and they parted ways. Santiago journeyed alone to the Giza pyramids. The massive stones stood breathing under Egypt's sunset. He knelt and wept, not from exhaustion but from the overwhelming fulfillment of reaching the place his dream had painted from the start. He dug and dug beneath a palm tree near the pyramids. But there was nothing. At that moment, bandits appeared. They beat him, searched him, and mocked his futile digging. "You fool, you traveled all this way for a dream." "I once dreamed of treasure in Spain, buried under a ruined church where sheep sleep. But I wasn't stupid enough to chase it." In that instant, Santiago froze. The ruined church the thief described was the very place his first dream had occurred, where he had slept under a sycamore tree in an abandoned sanctuary, surrounded by his flock each night. As the bandits left, Santiago lay in the sand, bruised but not despairing. He laughed. He understood what the journey had taught him. The treasure wasn't just at the journey's end, it was the journey itself. Santiago returned to Spain. In the glowing dusk, he reached the old church where it all began. He dug beneath the sycamore tree. This time, he found it a true treasure, a chest of gold, gems, and untold riches. But more importantly, he realized the greatest wonders weren't in material wealth, but in the transformation the journey had wrought within him. He was no longer the solitary shepherd boy. Now he understood the universe's language, listened to his heart, and had lived his personal legend fully. Before the story closed, Santiago looked to the night sky, a gentle breeze passing by, and whispered, "Fatima, I'm on my way back."